Are you excited about writing your very first test class? I know about myself and I am very excited. So for this, we are going to take our COVID-19 class as an example, and this is how our COVID-19 class looks like now. I have a parameterized constructor to initialize my recovered in area field with the value that I'll get in my constructor, and I'll also update my recovered in country count with the recovered in area count that I'll get in my constructor. So this way my country count will also keep on updating. And remember, since this is a static field, it belongs to the class and its value is shared across your entire Salesforce org at that time. I have made a slight modification in this class and I have added one method here called getTreated, and this method returns the recovered in area count back to the caller. So its return type is integer and it returns the value of recovered in area field. Apart from that, the class looks same. We have a method called treatPatient which increases the count in area and country both, and we also have a method called printTreated. Actually we do not need it because it's a simple debug statement, so we can simply remove it. Now the job that we have in hand is to write a test class for this COVID-19 class. And remember, we are writing unit tests, so we need to focus on each of these methods or units and check if each of these methods are working or not. The easiest way to create a test class is to go to your file menu and click on new and click on Apex class. And I generally prefer the same name as my actual class and then appending test keyword in the end. So I would give my test class a name as COVID-19 test. So this way I can easily find my class and its test class together because they both start with the same name. Now this is a very normal class. How can we say that it's a test class? We cannot, because it's not a test class yet. To make it a test class, remember we need to use an annotation called isTest. And as soon as you add this annotation and you save your class, then this class becomes a test class, and here you also get a button called run test. Now this button is not available for the normal class. Now in this test class we need to write unit test. So first we'll write unit test for the treatPatient method. So let's do that. And remember, our test methods can only be either public or global, and here in this case, since our class is public, our method is also going to be public. Then these methods should also be static and should not return a value, so the return type should be void. And then what I prefer is I'll copy the method name and then I'll simply paste it here, and maybe like I'll append test here as well. So by looking at this method name, we can clearly say that we are trying to test this treatPatient method. Now again, this isn't a test method yet. To make it a test method, you need to copy the same annotation here and add it on the method as well. And then you can save your class. So far we have just created the skeleton of our test class. The real magic will happen in this method. So to test our COVID-19 class, first we need to create an instance of this class. Maybe we'll supply some value to its constructor. Then we will also call the treatPatient method to increase this count. And in the end, we are going to check if the increase in the count is correct or not. So you will see it when I write the code. First, let's create the instance of the class. Here we can simply say COVID-19 and let's name it as Jaipur again. And since we are calling a parameterized constructor, so we can say like the number of recovered patient in Jaipur is 10 for the simplicity's sake. Now as soon as you call this statement, our class should have this recovered in area field as 10 now, because that's what our constructor is doing. So we can easily call our getTreated method to get the count, and then we can compare if the count is 10 or not. So that will be our very first test. So this will be our test for the constructor. So since we have passed the count as 10, here we are going to check if the recovered in area field value is 10 or not. And for that we are going to call the get treated method. And to compare these values, we have got two methods from the system class. The first one is assert method and the second one is assert equals. So I'll show you the syntax of both. And here we have got two methods with the name assert. So we can clearly see the polymorphism here. One of the method is accepting only a boolean condition and the second one is also accepting a message as well. Along with these assert methods, we also have got the assert equals and assert not equals as well. So first let's use the assert equals, which says that the first argument should be what we are expecting, then the second argument should be the actual value, and the third argument can be the message. So let's use assert equals here, and what we are expecting is 10 because our count should be 10. And how we'll get the actual count? We'll get it from this get treated method. So what we can do, we can have an integer variable here, we can call it treated, and we can simply use Jaipur dot get treated, which is going to return us the number of recovered patients in Jaipur. Or you could directly copy this statement and paste it here instead of actual, because ultimately this is going to return an integer. So it doesn't matter whether you assign its value to integer variable first and then use it. For the simplicity's sake, let's remove it from here and let's use the treated variable. And this assert equals method can also accept a message as well, and this message is printed when this assert equals results to false. So we can say treated count does not match. So we will see this message only when the treated count doesn't match, if the actual count is different than the 10. So that's when we will see this message. But if the actual count is 10, then we will never see this message, and this means our test is working fine and our class is also working fine. So that will be our very first test, and let's run this test just by clicking on this run test button here. Let's open this panel here and we can go to the second tab, which is called tests, and here we see that we have just executed a test and it tested from the COVID-19 test class, and the method that got executed is this one, treat patient test. We can double click on it to check the comparison, and here it says, okay, how can I, so we don't see any error. So this means our class is working fine and our test class is also working fine. Now we can go back to the COVID-19 class and we can simply check how many lines we have covered in this class. Like how many lines does our test class or this particular test cover so far? Because remember, I said like at least 75% code coverage is mandatory in Salesforce, but we'll always try to beat the 75% and we'll always try to go above that. So here to check the code coverage, you can simply click on this code coverage button, and here it says that the tests that we have run so far, they are covering 70% lines in this class. You can click on it. All the blues that we are seeing, those lines are covered, and all the reds that we are seeing, those lines are not covered. Here our treat patient method is not covered because we haven't called it from our test class yet. So that's why only 70% of our class is covered. So let's keep going and write few more tests in our test class. Now I'm going to create one more instance of this COVID-19 class so that we can also check if our recovered in country is also working fine or not. So I'll copy the complete code. I'll paste it here, and this time maybe I'll name it as Hyderabad, and we will say that the total patient recovered in Hyderabad is maybe like 112, and we can simply call this get treated method on Hyderabad as well, and this time our expected value should be 112 instead of 10. Same I'll mention in the comment as well. So far so good. And if we get the correct count from our get treated method, then our class is working fine. But what I want to test is the value of this recovered in country field. So for that, let me add a comment here. It should be 112 plus 10, which is 122. Let's copy our assert statement here. And here, instead of 112, we can change 122. And instead of treated, we need to get the count of this recovered in country field. So getting the value of this variable could be a challenge because this is a private field, and if you try to get its value using the class dot recovered in country field, it won't work. Let's save it, and I think we'll see a problem. And it says the variable is not visible. The reason being it's a private variable. So we can make it public. That should solve our issue. And as soon as we made that public, we don't see that issue anymore. But we are seeing a different error, and it's on line number 17, and it says duplicate variable. Okay, the reason being we are using this treated variable twice. So instead of declaring this variable again, I'll remove the integer in front of it. So it won't be a declaration statement, and now we are simply overriding its value. So we can get rid of that error. So let's run our test class again. And this time we are going to check the value of our static field, and if we don't get any error, then this means our test is working fine. So we didn't get any error. Now we need to test our treat patient method. So we still see, I guess, 70% of the code coverage. So this should be easy enough because we simply need to call this treat patient method. So we can simply say, let's get our instance variable called Jaipur, and we are going to call the treat patient method on it. And as soon as you call this treat patient method, now this count should increase to 11, and this count should increase to 123. So let's get our updated count again using this statement. So we are going to use our get treated method again to get the latest count from the Jaipur instance, and this time I'm going to show you the use of assert method instead of assert equals. So we can simply call system.assert, and we can clearly see that it only accepts a boolean condition. So our boolean condition will be if this treated is not equals to 11, because now the treated count should be 11 in Jaipur instance, as we have called this treat patient method, which increases the count by 1. So let's use our assert condition here. So I'm going to use my treated variable double equals to, which is just to compare the values, and then the value that we are expecting, 11. You can also pass a friendly message as well, the way we have done before. So you can simply copy this statement and paste it here. And we can write the same assert statement for a static variable as well, because now the value of the static variable should be 123 instead of 122. So first I'm going to get the value of the static variable, and then 123. So you can compare these values either by using the assert method or assert equals. So it's totally up to you. I generally use the assert equals, but in some cases where I have only a boolean condition, then I use the assert method. So let's save our test class and give it a run again. Our test cases are passing this time as well. And let's go to our COVID-19 class and let's see the code coverage. This time it's 100% because we are covering all the lines of code. So our test is successful, but does it mean that our code is working fine? Because so far we are only doing the positive testing. What about the negative testing? And I'll show you a simple scenario here. How can we test our class negatively? What if we pass a negative value in this recovered in area field? in our constructor. So this will set this variable to negative, but can this recovered in area field has negative value? I don't think so, because if you don't get any of the person recovered in your area, then it can be 0, but it cannot be negative. So it can be like either no patients recovered or some positive number of cases recovered. It cannot be negative, and we'll test that now. So I'm going to copy everything as it is, and I'm going to create another method here, and this time I'm going to name it as negative. I'm going to remove the second instance of my class because I don't want to test this much. We have already covered that in our previous method. And here, instead of 10, I'm going to pass minus 10 this time. And instead of comparing 10 here, what I want to compare is this treated count should be 0, because even though we pass this value in negative, what my thinking is that my class will take care of it and all the negative values will be converted to 0, because the recovered in area field cannot be less than 0. So I'm going to compare it with 0 because that's what I should do in my test, and I'll comment that here as well. And let's save this class and run our test. And if you take a look at this, we are seeing a red here, and we are seeing it in our treat patient test negative. So this means we have got an error, and it says treated count does not match. We are expecting 0, but the actual value that we have got is minus 10. So it's not matching. So our logic in our class is not working fine. It's not taking care of negative values. And we are going to fix this in our constructor. And what we'll check, if the value that we are getting from the caller is less than 0, then we will disregard that value and we will set our global variable to 0. So let's check this. Copy this variable and let's put a condition like if it is less than 0, then I'll copy this statement and I'll set it to 0. I'll completely disregard this value. But if it's not the case, then I'll let my existing code as is inside a else statement. Let's save our class and let's run our tests again. And this time I think our tests are passing, so we can simply check the output of the test negative method as well, and we don't see any error, and our class is also 100% covered. So this is what you need to do when you are writing tests. You should not only test for the positive scenarios, you should also test for the negative scenarios as well, like what could go wrong in your code. So this is how you are going to find the areas of improvement in your code, like the way improved our constructor, and this is how you can also find some bugs or exceptions in your code. So I hope you enjoyed writing your very first test class. I'll see you all in the next lecture.